Here we are, and welcome to another episode of the Friday Night Movie Podcast. We have one of our all-time favorite guests, our all-stars, the Mike Roberts is back. You know him from his amazing creation of Dallas and Robo, which we've been raving on since year one of the podcast. Final Space, BoJack Horseman, a Juno Award winner for Rumbleseat. His collaboration with the Tradesies. Did I miss anything, Mike? I feel like I know your stuff so well at this point. It's like off the back of my head. But is there anything I missed?
No, I'm NFT curious. I mean, I'm just kidding.
NFTs and Bitcoins. I feel like those are really, really big right now. I don't understand what an NFT is. Do you know what an NFT is?
I do, but I don't. Like, I don't think anyone really. Did you see that SNL sketch? They did like a Eminem spoof of NFT. It's pretty good, actually.
No, but I have to check it out. It's basically like something that's nothing but can never be recreated. That's
okay. So a Bitcoin is like you make a fake. Fake makes people mad, but it's all fake. Gold standard's fake. It's all fake. Fake gold value is fake. So when I say that, I mean it with love. It's assigning a value to an algorithm, and then that creates scarcity. So no one can have that same algorithm. So that's worth this much. So to own it, you have to get a piece of it, and there's less. So it's basically making an imaginary thing based on an algorithm that you assign a value to, and then everyone else agrees to pay for it. I mean, it's literally how money works. So an NFT is a Bitcoin with an image attached.
Got it. So you could make one of like a drawing of Robo.
Totally. And sell it as an NFT.
So it's like could be like a fine art piece in a sense, because it's the only
well, that's and what it's essentially done is, in theory, it's given the Instagrammers a way to monetize their Instagrams, but it's not on Instagram. I'm just saying that concept of a digital gallery, and then you own the uniqueness of it. But really, it's just turned into a free for all of who can get the most marketing.
Wow. Well, welcome to the NFT episode of
True.
So, but before it's so great to have Mike back. Before we get to our theme today, by the way, is we're just going to ask Mike and talk to Mike about, and maybe he's going to ask things about just whatever is happening in pop culture and movies and television and what we've been watching. It's going to be fantastic. Before that, Lily and Becky, how are you doing? I'll start with Becky since Lily's in traffic.
How am I? I'm great. I went by myself. No, we went with the whole family to an alpaca farm.
Including me.
That's the best.
Including Shy. We brought all the kiddos. We got to feed them and pet them. And Shy bought all the kids very large alpaca stuffed animals.
And alpaca socks for our parents, because I didn't want them to feel left out. And
it's amazing.
I think Mom texted you and said, "Buy me something. I don't want to be left out."
That is true.
To be clear,
I'm getting very anxious about their arrival. They will be here on the day this episode drops. They will be arriving at my house for their first time in a year, because they've been living with Lily for a year. And I have been preparing for their arrival, because it's no secret they don't really like staying with me for more than 12 to 36 hours at a time. But in the age of quarantine, they've
been known after a day, or I think before even the first day hits, to just be like, you know what, we'll just go stay in a hotel.
Yeah, or we're just gonna go to California to see Becky. So so Becky,
and yet you're the favorite. It's so weird.
Yeah, it is a little bit annoying.
The environment, or is it the dynamic?
I mean, do you want the list of things?
It's literally
we can give you the list.
Comes down to coffee.
Wait,
tables and mug size.
Okay, Lil, put yourself back on mute. It's very loud. So here's the gist of it. Shy does not want to admit that he's created a guest room in very broad air quotes that's just not very comfortable, but gets offended when my parents say your guest room isn't comfortable. Got it. That's the
we have an uncomfortable house for guests.
At Becky's advice, I reached out to my parents and I asked them for their rider. I called them up. I said to my mom, I said, "Mom, what
needs to happen?
What can I do to make this a comfortable stay for you? I got 2 weeks to do this. Just give me your list." "No, we don't need anything." "Mom, please, just tell me what you want. What would you like?" She says, "Well, we need a lot of space. And we also need a lot of storage to unpack, because I'm not living out of a suitcase. My mom will unpack if she is staying somewhere for 6 hours.
I didn't know that existed until I met my wife. She unpacks at a hotel. I didn't know that was a thing. Like if you told me that every hotel I've ever been to that the drawers were glued shut, I'd be like, yeah.
My goal when I stay at a hotel is to keep everything in the suitcase at all times.
Yeah, me too. And you move the dirty clothes into the bag.
Yeah.
They give you a bag in the closet for cleaning. You take that, you put your dirty clothes in there, and then you wedge that into your suitcase and kind of you reverse fill with dirty clothes.
Exactly. That's 100%. Like I'm afraid of the drawers because I know I will leave things in it. So my mother's the other way around. So I say, okay, Mom, there's a trade-off. There's space or stuff to put your things in because one or the other. You got to pick, right? I don't have infinite space. And she said, no. I need places to put things. So I have a plan. We're working on that. So that's very good. And then I said, what about other things to make you comfortable? Towels. She asked for washcloths. I bought 48 washcloths because I mean,
you can't run out of that.
Did you really?
That's a good amount.
3 different colors, a package of 48. There's because she seemed to want more than one per person. And so
but buying 48 seems like sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, Mike, whatever you're going to say is accurate. Please go for it.
No, I was going to say 48 almost sounds like a passive aggressive. Oh, you want washcloths? Here's
that is perfect. Shy is a passive aggressive shopper. Because what he says, he goes, this is what I need for myself. And then I'm going to buy double that for each individual person. So nobody can even think of touching the thing I bought for myself.
I didn't, by the way, I wasn't implying that you were doing anything wrong. I was saying it could be interpreted as such.
Well, in this case, I'm just really trying to make sure all the bases are covered. And so then I asked my mom, and then I said, what about shampoo? Do you have a preference for shampoo? My mom asked for I got the Pantene conditioner.
You got 150 gallons of Pantene.
Well, that's it. My mom said specifically, do not get me a gallon of shampoo. And I said, you'll get whatever size shampoo I can find in this quarantine era. And then last but not least, my dad, who is really an easy customer in a lot of ways, in terms of vocalizing these things, he's very,
very
my
clear
dad,
with what he wants.
My dad has also been known to sleep on the floor in order to make other people comfortable. In this case, you hear him in the background, like a very quiet, I wouldn't say a bark as much as like a growl of, make sure they have the right size coffee cups. And I was like, wait a minute.
Listen, I think I both agree with them and disagree with them. Because I agree with that you have to have the right size coffee cup, but I think there's no right coffee cup. There's the right mug. It's not about the size.
Well,
it's about the
So that's an interesting point. Either way, this was an area that I don't, I've only started drinking a lot of tea lately, so I have no real awareness. But I'm looking at my coffee mugs while this is happening. Like, what's wrong with my coffee mugs? Surely they can't be. I'm like, you need me to get bigger coffee mugs? Because in my mind, we have pretty big coffee mugs. And I'm like, the only thing you would want is bigger ones. No one could possibly want smaller ones. And then my mom says, your sister's coffee mugs are just too big. so I said,
well, maybe she means they make the coffee cold quickly. That happened. That's
maybe that's it.
That's probably it.
I said, do you want smaller coffee mugs? And then Mom said, yeah, a normal size one. Well, at this point, I'm completely lost because I thought mine were normal. So I made my mom get a what's it called? The thing with the ounces.
A measuring cup?
A measuring cup and pour. I said, Mom, get the measuring cup, get the coffee mug you like. Tell me how many ounces. So there are now
a half a dozen
10-ounce coffee mugs in my house.
Do you ever get a brunch at a hotel? And you maybe it's in a hotel that maybe is you spent a little bit more on, and then you eat in the restaurant and they have coffee for breakfast and it's a little delicate mug. And it's the best thing ever because of how dainty the mug is or something, but it's not one you want at home. So I guess what I'm trying to say is coffee's so experiential in the moment that the mug matters, but I think it's their job to find the mug. Unless you're one of those people who have all the same mugs, and then I worry about your sanity.
No, what I mean? We have everything from Star Wars mug from the 90s that I have.
I also want to point out I live one house over from Shy, and I own coffee mugs in every shape and size because every time my parents come to visit me, they complain they don't have the right coffee mugs and go out and buy themselves new ones. or just
Well, that's. I mean, listen. At least that's.
So
at least they're handling it.
that's what
that
I'm
they go
saying.
out and
So
buy it.
you could have just like she could have just come over on day one, gone through the cabinet, and said, "Okay, I like this one. I like that one.
I'm trying
Can
to
I ask
get
a question?
things. Oh yeah.
No, I was gonna say, why don't you plan like a trip to like Bed Bath and Beyond, like on the way from the airport? So they land, you get them in the car. You go, okay, first stop, Bed Bath and Beyond. Let's do this. You get the soap, the shampoo, coffee mugs, and you
kind of like
you
camp
make
shopping
them
with
do
kids.
it.
Kind of
Yeah.
like camp shopping.
But you
Well,
know
'cause
what?
the
It's
other
not
idea I
going to
had is-
matter because they're not going to like the coffee anyway because they don't like your
So that's
coffee
what I think.
maker. So
But this is a way to figure. This is smoking them out. You know. Hold on, wait.
Doesn't
This
matter.
door is gonna. Wait 1 second. The door's gonna make noise. Can you still hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can hear you just fine.
Because the other thing I was gonna say is, what about a business where you do you get set up for guests by a box that comes to your house that creates a hotel experience. So it comes with rolled up
Wow.
face cloth, the
Yeah.
little bottles, soap,
Yeah.
Yeah.
pillow mints, and it comes in like, and it's like you get like the go bag from like a
Right.
like in a movie serial killer, and
But-
like they got the guns, but it's all laid out and it's like
It's like
cookies.
all
But it's also, but if
the
it's
amenities,
Couple of
personalized,
towels.
amenities.
but
No,
but
this
imagine
would
if it's
be your hotel.
personalized.
This is like your hotel version.
But it's personalized because you get a rider before they come, and the rider's
Exactly.
sent to this company who takes care of it.
Yeah, it's like Framebridge or whatever.
Yeah.
So I just sent a frame out to get framed. It was great.
Exactly. I know that company.
All right. Well, we'll have to come up with a good name.
It's a good
for
thing
it.
we had
I
this.
like that.
I'm glad we had this. I'm glad we workshopped this. Mike is not just an esteemed director. So Mike, we love when you come on because you are so insightful, but you transcend, you walk that amazing line between like filmmaker but also super fan that makes it like that. Like it
Okay.
it puts me like, you remind me of Kevin Smith, Tarantino, right? Not because you make movies like them or anything like that, but like those people who love movies and storytelling like as much as like it is their job, like you love talking about it. So it's really fun for us to just pepper you with thoughts. Is that a fair premise?
That is, I completely agree, because I would never, I love Quentin Tarantino with all my heart. I would never, like, I could never, it even sounds weird to even imply that you could compare yourself, but what I would say is I aspire to have his love and understanding of the genre. Whatever the filmmaker you come out on the other end is. You know, I make cartoons, they're dumb, but like but you know what I'm saying? Like the way he talks about movies, I have like a ultimate relationship with. When I hear him speak, it's really inspiring, because I'm like, oh, there's someone who gives a shit as much as I do.
Yeah, Guillermo del Toro is
you guys
another
as well.
one. Guillermo del Toro,
Oh my God.
Guillermo del Toro is actually the better one, since he does make a lot of animation as well. But like, it's that same kind of thing, like a fan and like someone who loves it. So
He's working on a thing that I'm not literally working on, but I'm sort of working on the side from a distance, and it's really cool to watch him. They're making, I think I can talk about it. They're making Pinocchio, his stop motion Pinocchio.
oh no, that's amazing.
Oh,
That's
wow.
For
wild.
Netflix. Can you make sure that I'm allowed to say that before we? If you leave that in?
Sure.
I think it's a
Make
Netflix
sure
production,
that's
and they're
announced.
halfway through. Like, I think it's announced.
Yeah,
But I'm not let me say I'm not working on the film, but I have an association with the company that does. So it's kind of fun to hear the legend of him being equally as exciting in person. Like, I was talking to someone who was working with Taika Waititi, and it felt like, oh yeah, he's as good as everyone says.
Oh, that's
Cool.
amazing. Yeah, it's announced. There's a whole Wikipedia page. It's
Yeah, okay. I think I'm sure it is. I just mean
And-
Guillermo del Toro is also very inspiring.
And that's a relief that I feel like when you hear that someone as good as you think that they would be, instead of all the people we've heard are as bad as we couldn't even imagine they could be. So it's nice.
Well, the nice thing about it,
when you hear that. No.
Yeah. No, because I love the idea that, like, you know, when you hear people and they're bad, you go, oh, well, then I guess everyone's bad. So it's nice to hear that, like, when people are good, you're like, oh yeah, so there is a line. You can do it.
This is great. This is like a first act conversation that's going to come back at the end when I talk about the movies I'm recommending, because this is definitely, I had a moment like this last night when we were watching something. So there are things that we really look to you on, and there are these big milestones in the fan community, and one of them, of course, that we talked about a few weeks ago is the Snyder Cut. And I know, I mean, like the Snyder cut of the Justice League, which I've gotten some really funny messages from people being like, "What's a Snyder cut? Please tell me what a Snyder cut is." And
I like that it's a term before it's like a general term. His name's Zack Snyder. Totally and coincidentally, a Snyder cut is,
yeah,
Anyway.
exactly. Like, because also it's called that. It's not called the Justice League. It's just called the Snyder cut. So, like, what's your take on director's cuts, Snyder cuts, the Snyder cut versus the Godfather 3? Like, what's your general reaction? Because I'm moving more and more towards, like, there are very few director's cuts that I've actually loved. Although I thought the Snyder cut was fine. I never saw the original. And most of the time I feel like they're too long. So I'm now proponent of editor's cuts, which means like people who are not the studio, but who still like edit movies for a living.
Well, that's a great Quentin Tarantino type thing. Like he talks about how his filmmaker is, oh my God, I have to get her name right. Can I get it right? I think it's Sal. I know in my head what it is, but I don't want to say it out loud.
His editor?
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
I think it's Sally Menke, but like,
it is Sally.
How can I get that right? Okay, phew. Okay, but he talks about her being the other director, the other writer. So that's to that point. I think you're right. I think the editor is probably the most hands-on filmmaking position other than the director or the writer.
Yeah,
like it should be up there on that level.
I mean,
anyway,
they're the ones putting the pieces of the story. It's like Memento, right? Like they're the ones putting the pieces
let
of the
me
story
ask
together.
you, in working in animation, what is that relationship like? Because it's quite different in animation because, the story artists are like I don't edit it, and the film is edited before it's animated, which is something people don't understand. Or like the boards are edited, right? And
no, you're absolutely right. I mean, and that's even getting worse because the more that they make animators basically time out their boards, the less that the editor's doing. But I don't know. Because by the way, I think there's many ways that animation works. Usually you're right, like that. It's sort of like the editors kind of like clumping stuff together that the animators and the board artists have made. I think I try personally with my productions and it pisses off a lot of producers is to treat the animator or I call them animators, basically what they are, the board artists, like they're creating footage. So I will say like, don't go to, you can go to time because we have to get through it, but like treat it like you're making footage. Don't try and edit your scene yourself. Give it a little space, give it a little time, talk to the editor about what you want this to be, because it doesn't matter how good of a storyboard artist you are, you're not the best editor. You might be a good editor, but you're not the best editor. It's like I can edit, but it would also be, it's like saying like, it's the difference between like drawing and being like Raphael, you know what I mean? Like it's so anyway, but that's what I would say to that. Like, I think that the editing process is sort of undervalued in animation. So you find animation editors who are geniuses and just assemblers, and finding you actually have to hunt, because you can get someone who's worked a million years and they're just an assembler. And then you find someone who's as good an editor as any other filmmaking genre. Medium. Awesome. Anyway.
So coming back to these different cuts. Yes, this is awesome. Coming back to these different cuts. What's your take on these different cuts? Like, what is your reaction to these a couple of very high profile ones, the Snyder cut, the Godfather 3? What's your general take on this phenomenon?
Well, I think the main thing, because I don't, how do I say this? I didn't really like the Snyder cut, but I also didn't like Justice League. And I do think Zack Snyder has good movies in him. Like I actually think Watchmen's really good. I don't have a problem with
that. Is the one of his movies that I love.
And I liked Man of Steel, but it's like the more I see, it's like Rian Johnson would be one of my more favorite filmmakers these days if it weren't for The Last Jedi. I think he shouldn't have done that. Like I just don't think that fits in his lexicon, because Brick is one of my all-time favorite movies. Mm-hmm. So like,
great movie.
So how do you judge him? Like, the Snyder cut is, to me, without an editor. It's what happens when you just put everything possible. Like, it's edited. I mean, the scenes work, and the pacing in the moment actually works. There's no problem with the filmmaking. The mise en scene is great. Like, there's shots of Superman in the Snyder cut. I was like, that's so cool. I wish I was watching this IMAX. It's so bad that it's a little postage stamp. But like, but that's what so I would say, like, I think it's great. And I also think the anxiety of him having to stop and not be able to finish must have just crushed him, absolutely destroyed him. So I think this is like even if it's a lucky thing he gets to do, it's pretty amazing that he was given back the keys to sort of clean it up and send it out. So I think it's an amazing feat. I kind of both don't like it and also love it at the same time for that reason.
Dang.
That's very cool. And now, what do you think of The Godfather 3? This is a filmmaker also sort of tackling unfinished business is the best way to describe it, because The Godfather 3, I've always loved The Godfather 3 as a story, and I've always felt that there's a great movie in there. Even when I saw it as a young kid, as disappointing as it was, because it feels different. It feels so different than it's so 90s.
It's weird, right?
It's such a 90s
How different
movie.
it feels.
But what was your take on that, and what was being done there? Like, is Coppola doing the same thing as Snyder? Is he doing something else?
I think that one is sort of like hindsight. I also think, to me, because if you read about it, I get, of course you watch a thing and then you have to like do your Wikipedia deep dive for like 6 hours afterwards. But like, he was sort of pressured financially into finishing The Godfather Part 3, I think, right? Like, he needed the money and it was like the right time and the studios really wanted it. So that's why he moved forward without Robert Duvall. That's why he moved forward on they cast his daughter because a bunch of people dropped out. So
I think it's Winona Ryder got sick is the tale.
Something like that. And I don't know, by the way, I don't know if that would have been better. I think Winona Ryder is amazing, but I don't know if that's her role. Because I also think like, who plays the Vincent? I love him.
Andy Garcia.
Andy Garcia. Andy Garcia is amazing in that. But I also think Andy Garcia is 1 degree too 90s for a Godfather movie. So Andy Garcia, in a weird way, he puts the time. Like, I know it sounds stupid to say, but like Michael Corleone's haircut in that movie dates the movie.
It does.
Like the other movies feel
one of the
timeless.
It's one of the weird things about that movie is that look he has.
But it kind of works because in the 90s, it sort of had this Gordon Gekko type feel. Like, it looked like he was trying to act like Gordon Gekko. So like, it kind of worked for the character, but there wasn't enough Gordon Gekko in the movie to like make it play. But like, because he wasn't wearing like the shiny suits. So anyway, but the point I'm trying to make is I would also think he would want to fix it, in the same way that Zack Snyder would want to fix it. So, and by the way, I think The Code is a much, much better film, even though the majority of it is not. I would say it's much more the same than even Snyder Cut is.
Yeah, it's a tighter movie. It's tighter movie. It feels like it's just a better pace. I will say, like, if they made that today, I think they would just have shelled out the money for Duvall. In today's age of of reboots and things like that, they don't leave one of these classic actors on the table when they're doing one of these. That was one where he wanted the same money as Pacino, I think. And
I wonder what the line was, right? Like, because it's like, if you want to say money to Pacino, makes the budget $5 million more and you're spending 80, like, I don't know, or maybe 20. I don't know at the time what that meant. Like, I know that half the budget of Superman was for Marlon Brando. So it's like hard to know what the metric is, but you're right. It seems like if you're already gambling, what's a few more dollars,
Yeah. And then your other option is George Hamilton, who is okay. And it's fine for the sort of corporate slickster, but it's not the same thing.
I actually liked him. I just think they missed an opportunity to have a George Hamilton and Robert Duvall. Like, that would have been a really interesting thing. Like, make a play where the two of them are battling the old and the new,
where he's no longer.
It seems like that was what it was supposed to be.
Where he's the old consigliere.
Exactly. And then but it's not even, it's like the mob consigliere and then like the straight and narrow business consigliere, but even though they're monsters too, like it's the legal monster and the illegal monster.
I like it. Now, what would you remake? What would be
Wait, can I ask
sorry.
a quick question about the recut? Just, Mike, you had said that you didn't like Justice League. What is it possible to like a recut if the original you didn't really like?
I think so. I totally think so. I just think like the problem with Justice League, if you see the original, I don't think Joss Whedon made a better film, but I think all the notes he got to change, I agreed with. So like making it more positive, happier tone. The colors are too desaturated. If someone referred to it as watching a movie through like a clear bottle of vegetable oil, and I don't disagree with that as the aesthetic that Zack Snyder came up with, which I think actually looks great. It just doesn't look great to me for a comic book movie. So I think that's what it is. I think I don't think there was any version of this that was going to be good.
But in other cases,
I didn't like Godfather 3, the original one. It always felt not right. And I do say I like Coda. Like I watched and went, oh wow, this feels even though it's so similar, it feels totally different. That opening sequence in that movie is amazing.
Changes
like a kind of a business shakedown is like kind of a cool thing and a good that one to me is like flipping it and for the better.
The original one is
like
slow look at the house in Tahoe all burned out, right?
Totally, it's really weird. It just feels like you're like by the time I remember when I used to watch The Godfather first. I haven't watched it in a long time before the Coda, but we know when like Sofia Coppola would show up. I feel like you were exhausted by the movie already, so you judged her really harshly. So this version of it, I
feel like that's a great description of that movie.
Yeah, but in this one, when she's up, you're like, okay, well, it's not perfect, but it's she doesn't feel so important that it like drags the movie down. Yeah. And I think that's just what the pacing does. It's like, okay, I got lots of gas for these characters. So it almost like you don't get to the third, fourth time with her where you're like, is that really the best performance? Okay. Instead of it being like, oh God, not this. This is, and also I think people are harder on her than they need to be. Like it's not the worst performance in the world. It's just it's unnuanced, like it's missing something.
So
what I was going to say, because Force Awakens is to me a remake, which I watched at the drive-in last night. So that's all fresh in my head.
So what would you recut? Yeah, what would be the Mike Roberts cut? Any movie, any era, if you could be the person to do your version of a cut.
What's funny? And it's like, I feel like, like it's so not out of the question that like my hopes get up and then I just get disappointed because it'll probably never happen. But the movie I'd want to make is The Last Starfighter. Because like that one to me is, but it's not good enough that it's unbreakable. Like remaking like The Princess Bride is a sin.
Is a travesty. A travesty.
It's unnecessary.
But remaking The Last Starfighter is like, oh yeah, okay, there's room for improvement there. Because that movie's missing the best thing about that, which is him actually learning how to fly the ship. Right? Like he learns and he's good, but now it's like, okay, now you're going to the top of the mountain. Like the Kill Bill 2 on the top of the mountain is the most important part of the Kill Bill trilogy or duology. What do you call that? What do you call when you just make two?
Sequel?
Biology?
No, because it's
biology.
I just mean
it's not a sequel. It's not a sequel.
No, it's just cut in half.
It's a story that takes place over two films. It's not the same.
Like there's no movie unless you learn about how hard she worked to become this maniac. But you had a whole movie where she was proving it to you before you even got to that. So anyway, I think that would be it. Last Starfighter. It's not hallowed ground.
I think that's a cool movie, and I would love to see the Mike Roberts take on that. All right,
you know what I'm actually writing? I'm writing a sequel, not a sequel, a remake of Smokey and the Bandit. But like no one would know except that there's like cars. Like I'm not. It would not. It has nothing to do with that. You know what I mean? It's as much of a start over as anything. But that's one of those ones that is like, to me that movie's hallowed ground.
Oh, wow.
But it's just inspired by it,
Right.
It's there's homage in there, or it's got the DNA as
DNA. Exactly. Yeah.
DNA. It's related. Lily, one of my favorite things to do on our show is have Lily just ask questions about things she doesn't understand in the superhero world. And so we've been
that makes me sound super stupid.
No, it makes you sound cool.
No. This is part of what makes you amazing.
I don't mind.
So I figured you should ask Mike all the questions that you've wanted to ask me.
This time I did watch it. I watched 2.5 episodes of it. I didn't make it through the third. And I watched 2.5 whole episodes.
Wait, of what?
Here's Falcon. He's moving to Marvel.
Sure.
Falcon and his friend. And so first of all, I have this is a broader question. When is too much content too much for
agree with that.
Genre or a brand or a group of friends or superheroes? Because I literally thought the show was a fake meme. Like I didn't think that this was real.
It does seem like a joke, like a
joke or something, right? Like
even the name.
And then when Shai was like, no, you're gonna have to watch this. Maggie's gonna be on at some point, and you got to watch this. And I was like, that's not a thing, and it's a real whole show on TV.
I know. But also, WandaVision sounds like a joke until you realize what
doesn't
they're doing.
it?
Yeah.
Right. And then I'm getting all this like ads for Black Widow, and and so on and so on. And so I went, and then then Spider-Man's going to come back. When is it enough? Like, is it too much? Don't we all agree it's too much, or am I being like a party pooper?
Well, but I think that's, they say about superhero fatigue, and I think that's a real thing. But I think here's the thing that I realized: like, there's the nerd consumer, which I put myself in the category of, and then there's everybody else. So my issue is always when they make something that's ultra niche, why not try and go to everybody? So that's what I think is the genius of WandaVision. WandaVision is like blowing the formula up to try and attract everyone. And most people I know who watch the first 3 episodes are like, wow, this is great. So but
like
that's
changing it up. Yeah,
if you're gonna do that, I think there's no bottom. But I think like the risk with Falcon and the Winter Soldier is that it feels like a movie, sort of, which is also part of my problem with The Mandalorian, frankly.
I'm more
interested.
I've realized, even though I don't particularly I'm not over the moon about the first couple episodes of Falcon and Winter Soldier that I've seen. I'm more interested in watching it as a series than I am the 200 Avenger movies.
Okay.
There's so many Avenger movies. I actually I can't.
You like the lower stakes?
Yeah, I think I like the lower stakes. I like.
Well, and then there's more character development
about a couple characters,
right?
And I love watching. I love watching superhero movies, even if it's not a good one. I do truly enjoy it, but there are so many of them at this point. I can't keep track, and just having a show, be like, oh, I'll just watch this for the next couple months. I've realized
it paces it.
Yeah,
I agree with that, because one of the things, my biggest problem with Falcon and Winter Soldier right now is the first episode hit me, really got me, even though I think it was uneven. I thought that opening scene where he was flying in the...
It was super uneven, right? Yeah.
Well, here's the... It had a couple of things. It was both really epic for a TV show, so it made me go, oh, they're doing something here. But also, he's murdering people left and right, which seemed really weird. Tossing people out of airplanes. Those guys are definitely dead. So, it had this sort of tonal issue that I was working on, but I kind of went, as soon as the squirrel guy, some moments get me, the squirrel falling dudes, they did a thing where, well, the funny thing is they're fighting on the plane, and then clearly they didn't work in enough time to get them into their squirrel suits. So they did one of those zip, zip, zip montages of them putting their squirrel suits on, but you're like, no. That means he was standing there for the montage. What are you doing? That doesn't count. But then they did that thing where they went into a ball and went into the helicopter, and I was like, wow, that's so cool. So
that was very cool. That was a very cool.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then the whole thing happens, and then I can't tell you how much I like the concept of Winter Soldier trying to make amends for the murders he's committed. I think that
you do like that. Yeah, I think that's compelling.
I think that when he's sitting there, and you see and you just saw that flashback, and he's sitting there, and then the dad, and you don't know why he's hanging out with this old guy, and then you see the plate, and it's really, really nice cinematography in that show. Holy shit! And they're shooting up past, I guess they're sushi or dumplings or something, and then he goes I had a son, and then Winter Soldier, and you're like, oh fuck. Yeah. That's when that show hit hard. And also think Sebastian Stan's probably one of the best actors in Marvel movies.
I love him.
He really is. Good. He's a cut above. He's very good.
I would say one of the other things that element does really well is it is building out the Civil War movie a lot more. This really is a companion piece to Captain America Civil War and not much else. But the same way the Clone Wars makes the prequels better. This
justifies their existence.
This depth, right? Because the big reveal in spoilers in Captain America Civil War is that one of the people assassinated was Iron Man's parents. So this is now spreading those consequences out further, both for him and for other people, so that not everything is about Tony Stark and his parents and all that.
Yeah, he's saying sorry to someone else other than Tony Stark.
Right. And I like that element a lot.
No, huge. But then they do stuff he's running after the trucks, and he jumps in the truck, but you can see the truck behind, and the truck behind doesn't stop. They do weird TV choices.
We talked about that in our. Do we talk about that on the podcast? Because I talk about that in our house for a very long time.
I'm talking about my house.
We're hello.
It's a deal breaker in the moment.
Why isn't anybody doing anything? Why don't they?
My theory? Wait, I'm just gonna say in defense of this show, because I was furious about that. Because I was come on, guys. I was so mad about it, and I was ranting, and then I realized that they know that super powered girl is in there,
Yeah,
and I guess they're just waiting for her
they're
to
just
come
like
out.
But you
not fussed
can't
by
beat
it.
the
They're like,
shit out of him?
whatever, we got this. Like, we don't.
But there's
need
two
to.
kinds of things that you. I'm sorry, I don't want to
Doesn't
cut you
work.
off.
No, go ahead. That's the only like
You
justification
can't-
I have.
Yeah, you can't lie to the audience though. You can't, because that breaks the fourth wall. So it
Mhm.
doesn't matter what their plan was. You have to tell the story in a way where the audience doesn't go, hold on a second.
That
Because as soon
doesn't
as the
make
audience goes,
sense.
hold on a second, you're out. Right?
Well, I just
that's
was
when you
like,
start looking
Well, because
furiously
also
texting,
when
being
he
like,
jumped into
this
the
is
back
the
of
biggest
when he jumped into the
mistake.
back of the truck, and the truck that's directly behind that saw him do that did nothing. He wasn't like, that's weird. The other armed people in the truck behind me aren't trying to shoot at me or warn their friend.
ram
Honk.
the back or
Not even like a
something.
honk, like nothing.
But like, why not have
Find
a
that
character
weird?
moment where he turns around and looks at the driver of the other truck and goes like this, at like an asshole, here I am, I'm gonna fuck your shit. And the truck driver, stone face, just lets off the gas. And you're like, why is he letting off the gas? So all you're doing is winking to the audience. I know this is a problem we're addressing, where there's a problem. You have to be doing that constantly as you go. Because by the way, he dropped out of a plane, landed on his back, and he's kind of right, which is cool. I thought that was funny. It's like that's how you're establishing how strong he is. And then a minute later, he gets knocked off the truck and doesn't chase the truck. You can't. How can we worry about him falling off a truck if he just fell out of a plane?
Right, like
and also his like face is like then bloody, and I'm like, you just fell out of the sky,
out of a plane. Yeah, like what are we doing?
Unscathed.
But it was a choice to make him fall out of the sky, which I'm totally in for. You got to say, but then they also have that thing where when I found out the new Captain America doesn't have powers and Falcon doesn't have powers, these guys are all just punching each other. Like you can't all. It's the Batman and the Justice League, frankly. It's
where
like,
they were saying he doesn't have power, but he's the most powerful regular human, and you're like,
but the other
all
guy
right,
just
so
jumped out of
then
a plane.
right, so like what is it then? Like
it's
where
like saying Batman does a lot of push-ups.
Like,
yeah. Well, and that's what I like.
away.
Like I felt like you see that you justify the Falcon in that opening sequence of the first episode. You're like, oh man, with these wings, he's pretty great. It doesn't see him
like
punching
an
rocks.
Situation.
Yeah,
totally that. So like, because that's the problem with Justice League is like it's constantly reminding you that Batman's just a guy. The whole movie is just reminding you that Batman's just a guy. And it had one of my favorite things in Justice League. There's that moment where like Superman looks at the Flash. Do you remember that? I don't know if you saw that. That's a really nice moment where the Flash is used to being the only guy who can move that speed.
Oh, that's a great moment. Yeah.
And Superman looks at him in real time, and you're like, oh shit. But to me, I mean, one of the few really moments that hits in that movie. But I also think Superman as a bad guy is like, you know what I feel like? I feel like everyone goes, I don't know how to write Superman. That's like the cliche in Hollywood. No one knows how to write Superman. So write him as a bad guy is not the answer. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like saying, I want to make a biopic about Mother Teresa, but it's too obvious. So why don't we make her a bad guy? It's like, hold on. Well, although actually it is easy to make her look like a bad guy. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, that's
you can't...
depending on how you learn about
totally.
Mother Teresa. It's not
I realize it's
necessarily a stretch.
But I think I mean I couldn't agree more. I think there's this bias against Superman, and then there's this bias against, oh well, the only way we can deal with Superman is this paradox of him being a god and living on Earth. Now, I just watched the animated Justice League Dark, which I like those WB animated movies.
Sure.
And that one, they immediately establish where Superman, like they the way they tackle Superman in that one is the villains in this one are magic based, and John Constantine comes in and he goes, yeah, good luck with Superman. He can't fight magic. He's just super strong.
Right. So it takes him down.
So Superman is not even relevant to this particular story. I'm not saying the answer is to have Superman fight magic people.
But that's a great point. That's a great point. And to Mike's point, just exactly what you described about the truck, like you have to nod, wink, wink to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to, I'm sorry, you need to nod, wink, wink as to where the hell Captain Marvel is, Thor is.
Yeah. Which I even think
Avengers?
the Endgame movies didn't do that well.
Well, they blipped them, right?
in this story, I'm like, I just can't buy any of this because there is definitely more powerful superheroes running around.
Well,
tell me where they are.
The biggest one for me is where's Pepper Potts? She's still the head of Stark Industries. She knows all
She's
of these
on vacation.
People. They were
just
all
say
at
she's
the
at
funeral.
Like a bridal shower. Just make a note to why she's not available.
have we talked about Endgame before? Because like I have a big problem with Endgame.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, with the because you're the one who totally dismantled the notion of the snap for us. Why does he?
Yeah.
You kept asking him.
Why can't it be a part?
That's more like my comedy routine. I get it. I get why they did it, but I just think it's funny to be like.
They even talk
what was
about
an armpit
Doctor
part?
Strange. They even talk about Doctor Strange like it's one of
They
the big
mention him.
three. Alien.
That was funny.
Something.
He's the
wizards.
sorcerer.
Wizards.
So
Aliens,
where
wizards.
is he? So then where
But
is
that's why I like
that?
that show. But I don't mind them. But you're right. I don't mind them compartmentalizing it. But there has to be a clever way.
Right. But like, explain to me like that there's, you know, a bigger alien invasion happening and they all have to go do that. So we're just going to deal with as Becky said, amazingly, the Pokemon Go bad guy.
Thor is off Earth at the end of Endgame. He goes off with the Guardians of the Galaxy at the end of Endgame. So I'm not worried about Thor.
That's fine.
Dealing
and
with
Captain
a bunch
Marvel is taking a break or something, right?
No, she's in space. She doesn't hang around Earth.
So they all leave.
I don't want to. Keep interrupting.
Go ahead.
No, I just if you say there's this huge bad guy that they're fighting, like that new guy, the mask face dude, the hand mask face dude, that's when you call the Avengers. That's the problem, right? As soon as you go, oh, there's someone with Captain America's powers, you go, well, we got to call the Avengers.
Well, yeah,
everything up till that point, you can argue.
We're like, where's
at the point where you say no, there's at least 8 super soldiers as strong as Captain America. You're telling me you can't contact like anyone, like
anybody. But also they say it's one of the three big, like the big three. Well, you just raised the stakes so high that I'm expecting more Avengers to show up.
Like that's why I think like I like that it was those two, but wouldn't it have been great to have a scene where it's literally like Falcon, you are an Avenger. You know, like he's talking about his insecurity, he's talking about his thing. So be assigned that job.
Right. Have the same way in the second Spider-Man movie, they're like, you're gonna Peter Parker, you're gonna deal with this like alien robot thing that's coming because
because Nick Fury, you agree. Yeah, exactly.
Nick Fury, exactly. They're like, you're the one that's in town, you're gonna deal with it. Like, and that was like enough.
So Gabe Diani, another buddy of the show, and by the way, you should, if you haven't seen The Selling or Diani and Divine Meet the Apocalypse, Mike, you really should see those movies. They're
all right, I'll check
cool movies. So Gabe suggested to me though that the point of Falcon and Winter Soldier, like his hypothesis, is Sam coming around to the fact that he is an Avenger and that he is Captain America.
Oh yeah, no question. That's where we're going.
So
it showed like a training montage.
So this is the journey of him becoming Captain America as he became in the comic. So if that's the case, then I feel like Sam's insecurities kind of work. But yeah, it does kind of make.
And then I feel like it.
I love that.
Granted, I'm only 2 episodes in, but then I feel like at some point this is a sanctioned Avengers mission. You are 2 Avengers, and you have been assigned to this.
Right, they send them like an invisible plane or something or whatever.
Yeah, and like get some of and Pepper Pot sends them some gadgets, and then they go and they deal with it or something.
They can't give Jon Favreau an hour, like just 1 hour on a set. Do a green screen. Remember,
he could just walk over from producing The Mandalorian to their set and just.
It's like a Ryan Reynolds and Hobbs and Shaw. You know, you're like, oh, he was on set for 25 minutes. You know, like that because he's only in the same location, always on one shot. By the way, I loved him in that. He's so such good. You got one day. You know.
All right, now The Mandalorian. The grand finale.
I'm curious.
Of The Mandalorian.
We never even got to my question.
No, we're gonna get to your question.
Oh, okay.
Your question's like a whole other theme.
I know.
Right, but we're on the topic.
We're on the topic of the comics. Yeah, I just want to know what you thought about the finale, the final few minutes of The Mandalorian. Did that?
Well, last time we talked about season 1, right?
Right. Yeah. And we talked. You talked about the parking. How this guy's the worst parker.
It's a show about parking.
And season 2, the same thing happens. Like when he parks on the ice problem.
No, but in the second one, he has the jetpack that he uses to great effect, would have made all the first season episodes moot. Like none of the first season would have happened if he had his jetpack. And the second season almost seems like they're joking about that because he often does the thing where you're like, if you had a jetpack, this would be real easy, and then he does it. But I would say in that one, like, there's a few. I like that show, and I don't in some ways. But one of the things at the end, I have more of like a pitch. You know, like I'm always pitching like, what would you do instead?
Mike Roberts cut.
The problem with the end of that movie is you can't show Luke Skywalker like that. Because so here,
Tell me.
how it ended it, right? So what if you did this instead? It's basically the like last stand on the bridge, right? And then they're gonna die, and the Dark Troopers. I was in for that. I played Dark Troopers when I was like a teen, like the first person shooter. And then so you have the thing happen, and you hear this like you see it, right? But it's a purple lightsaber, it's a green, it's a yellow lightsaber, and you're like, whoa, what's happening? And you just get that like montage of Jedi shredding, right? And then let me start again. You do the green montage, you do the green lightsaber, everything's getting cut up, and you're like, holy shit, is that Luke Skywalker? And then the doors open, and it's 3 like 20-year-old, 18-year-old Jedi, and they walk in, each with a green lightsaber, and they're like, oh, and everyone's the audience is expecting Luke Skywalker, and they're like, what's going on? And they're like, we're here to pick up Goku, right, or whatever his name is, and then they're talking about it, and it's like, oh, this is amazing. And and then they take him, and they're like, here, who are you taking him to? And they turn around, and in the elevator, standing Luke Skywalker. So you don't have to have him in it. You don't have to have him acting. The whole point is then you show that he's training a new bunch of Jedi, right? Because this seems like it's just R2-D2 and Luke Skywalker doing their thing. But how do you tell the audience that he's training an army of new Jedi, which is what he's doing? So you have the recruits rescue Goku, and
how
then
do you know
in
that's
the
what he's
elevator,
doing?
because you would have
timeline-wise,
Jedi.
he's trying to start the Jedi Temple.
Yeah, so like if the end of Return of the Jedi, he succeeds. Now it's like, okay, Jedi are back, Return of the Jedi. Then in that intervening period, he's training Jedi.
He has to be.
Yes, because that's what we got. That's the whole point of Kylo Ren, right? Like he messed that up.
So here's what
and then you don't have to worry about the face that doesn't quite work.
So
the worst.
Well, if they had just put Sebastian Stan in there, everyone would have just been cool. The way Ewan McGregor.
Well, that's another. Yes, absolutely. If they'd recast, I think people would have had less of a problem with it.
And they just need to give. It's just the Sebastian Stan negotiations have to be happening, and at some point, it's just because Mark Hamill's. So I have my pitch. So first of all, I think that Luke Skywalker scene was absolutely amazing. It's a hearkening back to the Dark Empire comics where Luke's like walking onto the battlefield and tearing up entire Star Destroyers by himself. And that was, in my view, Favreau and Filoni making up for The Last Jedi. Like, that's them being like, we feel so bad for all of you who just felt so screwed. We're going to give you the Luke Skywalker you already wanted. But also, those Dark Troopers are so strong in the show that you're like, how is the Mandalorian? It sort of makes the Mandalorian himself just wildly insignificant. Like, you're just watching these things being like, what could possibly, like, he has no chance.
Which I like that.
Could be like the greatest Jedi ever. So my pitch, so I loved it, and I love the redemption of Luke. I wish it was Sebastian Stan. My pitch, because I still think Mark Hamill is at his prime. I think he's a better actor now even than he was when he was younger. I have this vision of a Godfather 2 Luke Skywalker show, to bring it back to the Godfather, where some of the movie is told of old Luke Skywalker and fleshes out, like, if we're going to be stuck with this whole story in The Last Jedi, then we need something a lot more meaningful about
that makes him like
just tell the Mara Jade story. Just call it Luke and Mara Jade, and have young Luke falling in love, the whole story with the assassin and Mara Jade and all that. And then have the other piece, him older, losing Mara Jade, right, with his nephew, because that's the thing, is that we don't know who else Kylo Ren killed. Like, if you follow the books, then Kylo Ren killing Mara Jade also would probably send Luke into seclusion. Now, what I also Obi-Wan show, supposedly, or they're alluding to, is going to show Obi-Wan's seclusion, and that's going to also mirror Luke's seclusion. So this like Jedi, and Yoda had his own Jedi depression. Like, the Jedi seem to have a habit of disappearing when things, Luke,
what is it? The tragedy of hope? What is that? What's that term? What movie was it in Blade Runner? Hope is like, anyway.
But Luke's supposed to be different. I mean, the big problem is Luke's supposed to be different. We've been sold all this time that Luke's different, which is problematic. But the thing I want to watch is Kylo Ren can't be the only Jedi Luke trained. And they've inserted lots of Jedi in retroactively. So you're right. Let's do that. But if I were making, there's also this like talk that maybe part of Luke's seclusion was also to hide Grogu, right? That it wasn't just about Rey, but that Grogu is his own important character, and that as much as he was
significant retconning that they're doing then.
Yeah, well, they're making
significant
that they're, because the Jedi are always lying and hiding things and stuff. So that's not crazy. But I want to see the show that takes place 300 or movie 300 years in the future. Grogu's now the age of like a young strapping Jedi Yoda.
Sure.
But so he was just hiding all through the 7, 8, 9?
I mean, or he's been trained somewhere else in some other place, but we're following him, and he's maybe learned under Rey, right? So we're sort of tight, but we're unburdened by having to. We don't have to destroy the Skywalker legacy in order to have a story that isn't about them, and we have this beloved character who then we can infuse connection back to. That's my general pitch.
Yeah, I mean, but this is the thing. Okay, you know, just as an aside, can I quickly just say, like, the idea that you have to do a thing for the audience as a favor is, I think, the number one thing that ruins movies. So, like, I'll give you an example.
For sure.
Because I watched it last night in what's the Force Awakens. Okay. Han Solo takes Chewbacca's crossbow and fires it and goes, "I love this thing," which is the most annoying fan service I think I've ever seen, because you're telling me that in the 50 years these guys have been pals. He's never
borrowed it.
Yeah, like if anything, he'd be like, "This thing is so stupid." Would have been such a better line for why does this have a crossbow? Would be, you know, because like I will say, like, my pitch for Solo is that he didn't understand him for the whole movie, right? Like that's like, I think as soon as they made Han Solo and Chewbacca able to speak to each other at the beginning of Solo, the movie was over. It was never going to be a good movie. So learning to communicate is that movie. So, but having that crossbow, it should have been like a point of contention. This is the dumbest thing ever. And then you have a character moment that you're not under. Like, one of the things I don't like about, I think he's a great actor who played Finn. Oh my God, his name.
John Boyega.
John Boyega. I think he's an amazing actor. Like Pack-a-Block, one of my favorite movies. Like,
it's such a great
movie.
It's a great movie.
But he does not play a stormtrooper. He plays a guy who gave up being a stormtrooper 10 years ago. So where's the obsessiveness? Where's the, like, these guys are brainwashed. So when he's in the cockpit shooting, going, woohoo, you know, which is very much audience avatar stuff. They need him to be excited. It doesn't play the moment of this guy having a panic attack and changing his entire worldview, right? It can't be the first time he thought of this. So what I mean to say is, like, you have to play these movies like the reality of the moment. And every time you have a character go, "Oh man, I wish I had a thing," you know, like, this is so fun. It's like, yeah, you're not a kid in a toy store. And that's what that ends up feeling like. And I think when movies do that in general, which is exactly why I hated Captain America using Thor's hammer, because it was just for the audience. It was just to, like, what haven't we done yet? What haven't we seen yet? What are the audience going to go?
They're literally running out of ideas.
That's what it feels like.
Don't know. Yeah.
Because how much better would it have? I think I said it last time. He should have just even been able to pick it up an inch off the ground and lob it to Thor in Endgame. Would have been so much more meaningful than him all of a sudden being Hammer Man. It didn't make any sense.
But isn't the whole thing with the hammer that, like, if you're worthy, you can hold it, or no? You just have to be like a god.
No, you have to be worthy.
I'm told, but I feel like even moving it off the ground implies you're worthy. But I do not like the idea that there's another Thor potentially. That's a bad choice.
Well, then you're not going to like the next Thor movie, because that's like the whole plot of it.
But I don't mind if someone becomes Thor. If he didn't know how to use it, if he threw it. It's just this whole, like, Captain America acting like Thor just felt like it just didn't work for me, because it just doesn't feel like we're not making anything special anymore. It's the lesson from Incredibles. If everyone's special, no one is. Yeah. You know?
Very cool. All right, Becky.
I just hate those kind of moments.
Becky has a huge line of questioning for you.
Well, it's actually funny. We were touching on it in the pre-show, which is, I'm curious, as someone who directs and creates animated shows. What do you think of kids animation today? Do you feel like it's a step up from when you were a kid, when we were younger? I actually might, and I can't see the second half of the question I wrote down because my computer is half frozen. So, but I remember that was the first half of it. Jive, you could read this.
So, is it a step up it seems like the quality is a big deal. It seems like
right, because if you look
quality is
at
important, but like but I want to ask Becky, are you talking about Corey Carson and Peppa Pig? Are you talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender versus Transformers? Like what things are you? Because if I'm talking about like
or Pixar or like Soul, like there's
no,
so
I'm
much,
talking about TV shows. I'm not talking about like like the biggest budget animated films. I'm talking about you're still gonna have like the very simple animation, but I'm talking about like I think there's a lot of Corey Carson, even this new one we've been watching in our house, Alien TV, Dragon Prince, things like that, where it seems that to me, like the quality of the storytelling and the actual effects, like the actual CG is, I know, I'm curious what you think about it in general, if you like what your opinion on it is.
Has Mike seen Alien TV? Mike,
I haven't seen Alien TV, no.
Alien TV is an instant hit of all ages. Becky,
I need you to watch it.
I think it's Canadian made on Netflix. I really do. I really
all right, I like
love
it already.
That one.
Is
Anyways,
it like a anthology show or something? Like is it just watching shows on an alien thing?
It's about these 3 tiny little green aliens who are essentially like a news documentary crew that have been sent to Earth to document all the different weird earthling
it's amazing
habits and goings
like
on,
getting a haircut or
you know, going skiing, like all sorts of funny things, wrestling, like all these things, and they have to like make these little news documentary shows that then like play back on their alien planet that they report on, but they speak in alien, so in the show they're not talking in a language you can understand. It all has to read just from the animation and the performance. Yes.
Right.
And
that's so great.
And at the very end of each episode, there's like a 15-second clip where you see their news report and it's dubbed over in English. So they're speaking in alien with like a
dubbing.
And it's like, did they get it right or wrong? That's really funny.
And they always get it wrong. That's the
or their interpretation of the strange things.
It's a lot like Uncle Traveling Matt from the Fraggles. If you remember, there was the one Fraggle who was out in the world who was the main character's uncle, and he'd report back about like.
So,
oh my God, Fraggle Rag's so good.
But I'm just, I just, what's your opinion on? Because there's also so much of it. There is so much more now than when we were kids. It's an overwhelming amount of animated children's content.
Well, I think Carmen Sandiego comes to mind as like the example of something that like could have been shitty and decided to elevate the look. You know, like I think they made absolutely no compromises on making a cool looking show on a show that didn't need it. You know, you could have just put it into any feeder and send it out the other end. Or even Corey Carson is you know, I appreciate that you have connection to it, but it's something that's easy to talk about with you because it's such a high level for what it is. And I don't think it's unnecessary. I think that production quality like resonates. So I always say like you have to scale your look to the budget. And that's why Peppa Pig's so smart, because it's not an expensive show to make. So there was a lot of, you could really invest in a show like that. Whereas Corey Carson, like, it better be good. Because it's like, otherwise everyone's like pretty pissed off, you know, and it is. Right. So luckily everything's fine. But like, but I think, so it's talking about, because I think I mentioned it before and you haven't seen it. So it's not worth talking about in the execution of it, but like Invincible. I have a thing with Invincible where it looks
on Amazon,
like Amazon. It looks like a kid's WB show. So how is an adult supposed to know?
Right.
Until you until you have the parent show their kid, and then it gets to an unbelievably gory, way crazier than any anime ending to the episode that traumatizes a kid forever.
So it's not for children.
It's not for children in the slightest, but it also has things where I know this is going to sound, it's not about this, so it's hard to talk about. They like go into a change room and they're very like careful about nudity, but meanwhile they're blowing heads up and swearing. And I'm not saying you should have that in there, but you can't, these visual inconsistencies where your tone is all over the place.
Well, that's American values just in general. We're highly, highly prude about like sexual, like, you know, about Absolutely. Like sex, but like we can go into a room and just, you know,
but isn't that doing the audience a favor if you tell them this is not for kids? And I feel like making it look like literally like Young Justice is a weird thing that your job with the look is, right? Like you are saying with Corey Carson, this is a really cute, delicate, rich world with characters that inhabit it that are toys, but you can touch them or whatever. You know, that has that sort of aesthetic of being able to touch them. Same with what was the other one? The Korra. Korra to me is like a Western anime. There's no that style fits it perfectly. It doesn't, and it also doesn't look like Saturday morning WB, you know? So like, how do you, to me, it's about making sure that your look match, like it's like South Park. South Park's a perfect example of that. Any more effort than South Park and you've wasted your money. So I always think like it's about the story you're trying to sell, like Troll Hunters, or what was the other, you guys had an example of high-end CG you just mentioned.
Troll Hunters, Dragon Prince.
Maybe Dragon Prince or whatever. Like that.
Dragon Prince is 2D, but it's pretty amazing.
It's like anime-ish, right?
Yeah, it's pretty high-end
But that to me is telling you what it wants to be. So that I think is the most important part. I don't like Puffin Rock. That's a great looking kid show. Have you seen that one?
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Whether it's good or not. I haven't watched an episode of it.
The aesthetics are really nice. It's cute. It's cute.
Yeah, it's cute.
But there's there's another show called Trash Truck, which I think aesthetically, it's just very a sweet, like slow. Just this little kid who lives in like an area where he must have like a huge like backyard, more like a rural area. And there's a trash truck that just comes and like hangs out with him, and they do different. And there's like a bear. Is it a bear? And then a raccoon who are also around there, and they're like friends with him.
Perfect.
But it's just like a very mellow show, and I think the aesthetic is beautiful.
Yeah,
I just don't remember.
I feel like it adds
animated
so
shows being so beautiful or interesting or elevated when we were kids.
They were technology, right?
But I spend a lot of time on these websites and YouTube channels that track the history of toys and animation. And like they weren't. The 80s cartoons were like a big chunk of them were just bought by a company in the United States from Japan, and they would not even find out what the script was. Like Voltron is just they got the animation and then they wrote their own script for it. They didn't even bother translating it. They didn't spend the money on it.
My kid loves that show.
The Transformers show, He-Man, they were all made for selling toys. Now, I think they were still great shows, but because the priority was on selling the toys, they would ship them off to go get made. They'd come back with all sorts of crazy mistakes.
So what shifted the priorities? Better technology, better creatives, higher demands? Like
I think, first of all, they don't use the laws changed, I believe. What you can market to kids changed. And so
that's true.
That changed in the 80s or 90s, and maybe the 90s.
Can't brainwash them. And so now the laws changed, but not in our house, where my brother has brainwashed my 5-year-old to like needing a new Transformers toy every 2 days.
We ran into that a little bit.
I buy the
Transformers.
I buy the old ones.
Lily, there's no more room in Shai's house to walk. You have to like clear a path through the house.
This is another sore spot.
It's just boxes of Transformers for your child.
This is another sore spot. One of the reasons why there's not a lot of room in Mom and Dad's guest room is that there's a whole
just Transformers.
There's a whole
waiting
section
for my 5-year-old.
But so there was that change. But I think toys just aren't sold. Like it seems like the 80s and 90s toy crazes, like there isn't a desire for action figures. Kids have Pokemon cards, they have video games. You're not using if you're going to have a show, it has to be a show now.
But I also
that is a big change.
Right. And I like what Mike, you were saying, that if you're going to put something out there that's going to use, the CG and tech and at its best, the stakes are high. You better also deliver a great story.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think you make a really good point there. And anyways, it's great to hear thoughts on it.
No, because I didn't mean to be dismissive about the technology. Like, I think that's a big thing where it allows for people who essentially would get bored making Transformers and G.I. Joe over and over again to like be able to, like Corey Carson's a great example, right? Like in the 80s, they would have just sent it to the factory that made Transformers.
Right.
So because you have passionate artists working on it that you literally know, like the idea that they can then execute something that they're proud of, I think there's a pride of being an adult who grew up on that stuff, where we want to make it as good as we remember it, even though at the time, I think the creators were maybe Dungeons and Dragons nerds who were like, this is my chance to tell this story that didn't even almost exist before. So I think it's just whatever it's like anything. As we get it's like the Beatles made it so that, you know, you had to be a production band. Now every band's a production band. You know, there's no like live acts essentially. So I think it's just compounding.
The guy who is the showrunner, I think it's the showrunner on the Voltron show for Netflix. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a great, it's a really good show. My kids love it.
Totally. Yeah.
And I believe he's quoted saying something to the effect of, I made the show that I remembered Voltron being.
Right.
I'm not remaking Voltron. Fair. I think if you
watch that, that's exactly how it feels.
It's like, I'm like, yeah, this is what Voltron was like, but it's actually not what it was like. It's just a good version of it.
My son, he watched Ready Player One yesterday or the other day, and like I've never seen him react so positively to a movie, and it just makes me talk about how it was crazy. He was screaming, and really, but I was kind of soft on it for a lot of it, but I also like, because this is actually something to say when I was talking earlier about like asking you guys, like I've become like bizarrely aware of things aren't being made for me, right? And I know that sounds stupid, but I think we all have to understand that, like, and maybe I'm just narcissistic, but like I can't assign a value to something because of whether I like it or not. You know, so like to me, like that's why I try really hard not to be cynical when I talk about stuff. And that's where like, because I feel like especially with working in kids TV, you hear a lot of people talk about how like kids don't or do understand stuff, and they understand everything. It's just how you deliver the message, right? So like, but I think there's a lot of cynicism in kids TV that implies that kids are dumb, and I don't think that's right. Kids are inexperienced. They're naive.
I think they rise to the occasion. So I think if you think about as much as you can say there were shoddy things about the shows that we watched, when you think of Dungeons and Dragons, G.I. Joe, Transformers, there were some heavy, dark, weird stuff that we watched as kids. And I deeply believe, and this is why I like Airbender, Dragon Prince, Voltron, Troll Hunters, for my kids that are a little bit older, because I'm like, kids will rise to the occasion. I firmly believe kids will rise to the occasion. And I think that's it's important to be. I think I'm holding on to the fact that we're in the last throes of things being marketed towards us from a nostalgia standpoint.
Well, they're going to have to be the next wave. Like it's going to be like all BTS spoof shows, and like, you know what I mean? Like it's going to be,
oh god,
it's going to be, well, I mean, that happened a little bit with YouTube, right? Where for like 6 months, like every YouTube star had a TV deal, and then like only a few, like Olin was one of the few that actually like was able to parlay that into a full series on Final Space, you know? So it's like, it's really hard to know what that next thing is going to be, because maybe it will just be TikTok. Like maybe we're hitting peak TV. Like I sometimes think about that. Like they're buying so much that we can only, like eventually the stock market crashes, right? So when do they start making less stuff? Because it's like, it's funny we're talking about superhero fatigue. Sorry, I'm just going, I don't want to go off on a tangent.
No, keep riffing.
No, but it's true. Well, because I was going to ask, like, my reaction to WandaVision is like, and by the way, like one of my friends, Cam, was a writer on, and he wrote one of my favorite episodes of the series. But like I'm just saying, like I respect the process. So when I say this, I don't want to sound cynical, but like to me, I wanted to see the version. Did you guys see the WandaVision?
We've only seen the first 3 episodes.
Oh well, then let's not talk about it.
Okay.
And you need to see the whole thing for otherwise I won't have a point. It'll just be talking into the air. But we'll talk about it next time. But anyway, I just think like, I think
we're gonna have to put a pin in that, make a note that.
Yeah, no, because
I'm personally deeply overwhelmed by the amount of content to choose from, and it makes me feel like no matter what show I pick to watch, it's the wrong choice, and I get very stressed.
You got to go deep inside and take my suggestions.
But I also,
but I just still feel like I just feel like I'm missing out on something. It's like when you go to a restaurant and the menu is too big, and no matter what you choose, you think, maybe I should have ordered that other thing.
Do what I do.
I have that.
Order everything you want.
I don't have enough time to eat everything. There are not enough hours in the day, and I get really bad acid reflux.
Let's go to wait. Should you tell me what's? Am I changing the format here? If I like,
no,
say
you get to. You're part of the family.
Yeah,
Mike.
the format is you.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Okay. What about have you then watched Ted Lasso?
Yes, that was the best show of 2020.
By the way, I feel bad I haven't caught up on the podcast since when you completely crystallized the format for me when you did the like psychologist talking to you guys. I thought that was like the best episode I'd heard. But
That's amazing. Thank you.
I
We'll tell Molly
I
that.
heard some of it, but I apologize if I missed the
worry
Ted
about
Lasso
it.
episode
No, that's fine.
because that one is, I think there are objective goods, and I think that one's an objective good. It's like
Yeah.
you don't have to love it, but you can't be like, maybe I'm wrong though. But like
No,
I just
I
thought
have
that was
not
such
met
an
a single
example
person
of
who's just not
positivity and
swooned at that
So
show.
unless there's like some form of like, I was worried because I was like, unless Ted Lasso becomes a zombie and starts eating people's heads, my husband's not going to watch this show.
okay.
So, and I would say that like he kind of was watching it in the background and then slowly started like sitting down with us. And then like by halfway through, he was like coincidentally making his tea in the evening right on time as we were watching it. And then by the end, he was like, oh my God, like Ted.
It gets everyone. It just gets
and I was like, oh my God, this is the show. Even you.
It also has the thing where I started doing the deep dive on the actors. Did you know that? I think his name's Brett Goldstein, the guy who plays Roy Kent, who's my favorite character in that show.
He's one of the
He has a podcast.
He's a podcast?
Yeah, he has a podcast called Movies When You're Dead. There's movies you take with you or whatever. And he just asks people like a list of what their favorite movies are. It's like, what's the best? What's the worst? What's the sexiest? What's the most violent? What's the scariest? It's pretty good.
Oh, that's amazing. And he was a writer, right?
He got his own show.
Yeah, that show to me, and that was one that was recommended by. I swore I would never get an Apple Plus subscription, and then I had enough people tell me that show was good that I said, okay, I have the Apple forced the free subscription on me, so I'll just watch it. And that was the best show I saw all last year. It was fantastic.
No, for sure, and it's such an example of positivity and lack of cynicism and like. But I even loved like he had the panic attack. Like it did all the things that made it feel honest. Like it wasn't. He did have weakness. Right. He did. It just. I don't know.
That one doesn't turn into a parody. That one doesn't turn into a parody. It stays the course of but it stays the course of a real show. Right.
Sure. Like, I think it pivots to a real show, like from a parody.
Oh yeah. Like
exactly.
Like it gives you the Parks and Rec vibes, but it's not it's not The Office where like or Parks and Rec where you're. It's more like it reminds me more of Schitt's Creek where. These people are really kind of in this world, and oh no, this is a real story about people, and they're gonna grow and they're gonna learn things, and it's gonna be
also like if they had won the whole thing or whatever at the end, it would have just ruined it.
Totally, it was super honest in the way that it played out,
and it leaves room for more seasons, where like. At the end of the first season of Schitt's Creek, if they get their money back, then there's no show.
Look,
right.
I'm gonna throw a pretty big grenade here. I think the first season of Ted Lasso suggests that Ted Lasso, when all is said and done, will be a better show than Friday Night Lights.
Well, that's the whole thing. Is like so. The obvious trajectory is they go down a level, then they come up a level, then they win. Right. And then they win. So like, because this next season, they can't, no matter what happens, unless they do, maybe they'll do a half season. Unless they can make them win the premiership halfway through the season, which seems rushed. So it's at least 3 seasons of down, up, right? Like, because they're down next season, they have to go. So like, there's the trajectory that they're playing there that we already, our expectation is they're going to win at the end, right? Like because they made the right choice now. So the end of season 3 is they win the not the World Cup, the European Cup. Yeah. So like, anyway, I just think that's really fun. Like they've built the premise in that now you can't care too much about them winning the game. Because that was the first season where they win.
Or about the growth of the characters. If you look at oh my God.
Jamie.
Oh man, it's the first time I watched through, I must have gone to the bathroom or something and not paused it because the scene where he sees the guy's dad yelling at him, he's going to go and say something to him, and then his dad hits him. I missed that the first time. And like something was missing. And then when you see that scene, you're like, holy shit. It turns that character from like a shithead into like, okay, well, I need to see more. And that those kinds of moments are so important.
Well, also, I feel like if we like Kaylee, what's her name?
Kaylee,
right? If we like Keely, if we like her, then Keely, if we like her, well then Jamie has to have something redeeming, because
Right. Yeah,
she
no, that's a
wouldn't
good
have
point,
been
actually.
with him. Like I was like, oh, like that's a really bad thing for her because he's the worst. But that, what we saw in that scene, obviously she sees or
But you know
deals
what?
with. There's something
I
there.
agree with you completely. It validated everything we'd seen. But I thought what they were doing, because earlier on they had really sweet interactions between them, which I thought was like, it was still fluff, and so it needed what you're saying. But they went out of their way to say these people have a lot of charisma. They have a lot of
Right.
chemistry. But then you're right. There's
Right.
that's not enough. So it's really nice that they finished his character out at the end of the season. Because man, when that actor too, like you got to give him a lot of credit. Remember when he reads the note from Ted Lasso and it says like, way to kick it over to the dude or whatever?
Yeah.
He looks at it. He goes, then he goes, then he looks from side to side to see if anyone saw him break and be vulnerable. And then kind of like, I mean, talk about doing 2 pages of dialogue with 3 looks, like that's where however they pay that, however much that actor gets, it's like, well, it was worth it.
That's great. I love
That's a good point.
That is really great. That's a great breakdown of Ted Lasso. So Mike, on the subject of Ted Lasso or other things you like, what have been some of your big quarantine shows? What do you recommend to people?
Well, it's stuff with my son and we were watching. It's like I have to recommend just because like it made a 10-year-old sit with us for hours and hours and hours. Is Fresh Prince of Bel-Air's better than you remember and worse than you remember, right?
So accurate. I love rewatching that show.
Yeah, like I feel like I'm speaking. So this is a great segue then, because Ted Lasso spends a weird amount of time talking about how much he loves the Carlton dance. Like that's the longest joke he tells in the whole series. So like when he's saying Alfonso Ribeiro is the genius, like that's my takeaway from watching Fresh Prince again, is that he's actually the hero. Like the work he's doing.
Rewatching it has made me question greatly, like why didn't we see so much more of him?
He should have had his own show. It's
Well,
crazy. It would have been an easy lock.
Well, I think it's because it was back in the day when it was so hard to go from being a TV actor to a movie star, or like onto that next show.
Or supporting
that's like
to
a different
front.
Yeah, like that's like 90s series.
No, you're right. You're absolutely. That's probably exactly what it is. Because like and even when you see him on like my son loves America's Funniest Home Videos, and he's the host. He's still, I mean, he's really cheesy, but he's good. So that's a big one. And then Seinfeld is sort of as good as it's ever was.
I rewatched the whole thing with not a lot of it with my kids, but a chunk of it with my kids. And that show actually, to me, I like it more than I ever did in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like now I feel it at a much deeper level than I did that.
And then we were watching the Golden Girls, and I don't know how as a kid I watched it because it's so somber and dark and it's sort of tone and subject matter.
I watched it every day after school.
Me too, absolutely.
It's not is it a kid's show? Is this show a kid's show?
No, I don't think
it's like
so.
very much.
Why do kids love it? Do they
I don't
miss
know.
their
I think
puppies?
it was just on. We were forced to watch it. Cable forced us to watch it.
It was
I watched it every day.
Positive show about the elderly with real old people, right? Like those are not like we're not
someone's
talking
dying
about,
in every episode or the threat of death.
And it's not like they're like Sofia Vergara is an elderly person, right? Like these are
which they would do now.
Right?
She'd be playing like the great grandmother.
Exactly. Like these are old women. Right, the grandmother is the youngest one, right? Estelle Getty. That was always the thing. Estelle Getty was the youngest one of the whole group.
Of the
and
group.
That show was so popular, but there was not one, but 3 and then 4 shows in its universe, because you had Golden Girls followed by Empty Nest, and
which
Nurses, which was a spinoff of Empty Nest. All of them took place in the same universe, and then Golden Girls became Golden Palace.
Oh, I forgot about that.
That's what a powerhouse show that show was.
I know, it's crazy how big it was. And you know what's weird? The weirdest thing to me is it's still in the SD transfer. It's the worst quality show I've ever seen for broadcast. Like they had everything else has been remastered, but that one, like you're watching those Seinfeld episodes, they're like redone for digital. And then what was the other thing? Ready Player One is a brilliant kids movie. That's what I'll say. So I'm not saying I
saw
would
it as an
recommend it for adults,
and I didn't love it. Maybe I got to go back and watch it with the kids.
I think you have to watch it with a kid brain, because he's like, I love this. Their fetch quest, and essentially every criticism of the movie he thought was great.
Right. I watched it with my brother-in-law who's younger than me, and it's a book. Am I right? Is that true?
Yeah, it was a super famous. It was like The Martian,
right.
As in a cult book.
Right, he had read the book and is a huge video game player, and I literally it was like an interactive experience. Like the only reason I liked the movie is because I watched it with him. And the whole time I was thinking, I was like, had I not watched this movie with you, this would be the worst movie I've ever seen. But he was like so into it and so excited that it made me really like it.
Well, you know what's funny about that too is like maybe, and I don't know if you guys have had the same experience, but this is one of the epiphanies come to too late in life. I think the movies that you really like often come down to 3 things that happen in the movie that resonate with you. And then those are the things that make you either forgive the bad or the things that make it stick in your memory. So like performance or a moment or like, you know, The Princess Bride it's quotable. Like the things that make people love movies are about like hitting those sweet spots of those moments, you know, like I remember like the original Superman movie has so many of those for me. So like I guess what I'm trying to say is like a movie like Ready Player One, it gets garbled and the end is really like some molasses. Like it just gets stuck in the mud so bad
weird
once
Willy
they
Wonka
kind of come
ending.
to the real world. Yeah, which I actually like. The Willy Wonka ending, like getting there, like once you're there, it's okay. But like the that last act when they're running around, and it's the real world, and it's super messy, and it definitely never feels like he's supposed to be in the real world, but it's still in the simulation. But they've set up that the simulation looks different than the real world. So how can this be a thing? And then anyway. But he was like, fetch quest. Ooh, I love that car race. Ooh, you know, so you realize there's some real like genuine brain in coming up with these moments, which goes back to Zack Snyder. Is he definitely makes moments that you can remember? Because I remember that the Superman looking at the Flash makes that movie 10% better. So if you did that every 15 minutes, you've got a great movie. And I think that's like a thing to remember, because like one of my favorite movies of the last little while is Man from U.N.C.L.E. I always go back to it, and it's a movie of moments. I love that movie so much. It feels like okay, this is my bad movies that I love, but like the last one I'll say, and then I want to hear from you guys, but like because I'm taking up too much time, but the Blade Runner 2044 is a modern masterpiece. It's a masterpiece.
Becky's
every time
Becky,
I watch
you're a big fan of that, or Lily's a big fan. The Denis Villeneuve.
Well,
I'm a very big Denis Villeneuve fan, but the way I feel about, and I've seen it like 1.5 times, but I think that where the movie ends is where the story should have started. And that's my problem with it, is that it's stunning to watch, but essentially like the ending is to me the story. I'm like, oh, that's what the story is supposed to be. I'd like to see that. Can I see that story now? Because that's what that's the story that's like the last 2.5 hours of the story I wish I had just seen.
So can I say,
as beautiful as
can you watch it one more time?
I will.
Because I had to watch it 3 times. The third time I watched it, I was like, I'm so in.
But I saw it in theaters, and I thought it was beautiful when I watched it. And I just generally enjoy Denis Villeneuve's filmmaking. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm nervous about Dune.
Really
I'm for that reason.
No, sorry. I'm so excited. I just feel
like I have far to fall from my expectation, because that Dune is a slog, man. Like even the books, like there's good shit in there, but it's not talked. It's not The Martian.
No, and the book like kind of like and even like when I read the book, I was like, I think I'm following what this is about, but this is pretty weird. I need someone to like show me what this is. So I'm excited.
It feels like a pervy, nerdy Lord of the Rings. That's how Dune always felt.
Because Lord of the Rings is not nerdy at all.
No, Dune is really on another level.
Dune is on another level.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dune is doubling down on the nerdiness. Because I agree. Like I don't have a lot of space for fantasy. That's my genre I'm not into. Like I just can't do it. It's horror and fantasy. But I love the Lord of the Rings movies. But every time they're like, "You have done great, young hobbit," I'm like, "Oh God. Okay, I can do this. I can do this. All right, we're back. He's got a sword. All right, let's do this." You know, like, but I think those movies are brilliant. I just need to like, you know, like whenever I hear, how do I say, like, I'm not a sports guy, and I feel like sports and Dungeons and Dragons are the same, because I have a lot of peers who play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, and I always think they're doing something cooler and just not telling me. So it's like, wait, you're actually going to play Dungeons and Dragons? Oh, I thought you were doing drugs or something. I don't, you know. But that's so anyway. But
Hilarious.
that's my problem. That's my problem, not the problem with the genre.
Those are all amazing choices. Lily, what are you up to? What are you watching? What's on your mind?
Falcon and and the many Captain Americas, because at this point I'm like, they all should have the shield.
If you had finished watching Civil War like I asked you however many years ago, then you'd know more what's going on.
I really
Bucky
like
was
Civil War. I
bad
like
and
that.
now he's good. That I got the
That's
gist
the
of
plot.
it.
You're right. Yeah. You understand.
Cap never
but
gave up on him.
Cap, exactly. Cap
Oh man,
never
so
gave
that
up
line
on her.
when he says Falcon Winter Soldier, he says if he's wrong about you, he's wrong
Then he's
about
wrong
me.
about me. Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
just those moments. I'm back. I'm in. The show's great again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's true. And also the actors are great. Like they're fun to watch. They are.
That's
fun
the only
to
reason
watch.
WandaVision works,
Sebastian
man. Holy.
Stan can sell it, you know?
Right.
If
right,
you look at the way, what's the actress who's the lead?
Olsen.
Elizabeth
Olsen.
She is.
Elizabeth Olsen.
It is just like watching people act at that level is really compelling,
Right?
Because she's doing a lot of hard work. Yeah, and same with Paul Bettany.
Bettany's amazing.
Yeah,
he's amazing.
It just feels like you're watching the moment, which is really exciting. That's why acting is such a X factor. Anyway, sorry.
No. So then we, as a family on different places, watched Debris, this new show, which is sci-fi, and I feel it's from the same producers as Fringe, which is awesome, and this is good, but I'm also like, I've been here before. And like, if it doesn't start, I think we're on episode like 3 now. Like if it doesn't start giving me something more to work with, I'm not sure I'll be able to follow.
I
like
love Jonathan Tucker, but Fringe right away is so weird and haunting that you're like, what is going to happen? Did you ever finish?
I mean, I'm definitely, I'm definitely watching it for Jonathan Tucker. And I would say it's like good, very emotional aliens in this show. Like the aliens are
they're very well. I mean, it's
very sensitive.
I appreciate that it's a slightly different take. It's the aliens are very, very a lot of their powers and their interaction is based on.
I feel like it's definitely doing an Arrivals sort of thing with it, you know.
Exactly, that is one of my favorite movies ever.
Yeah,
I love that.
Lily,
movie.
what about Patriot? Have you watched the best episodes of the show yet? 5, 6, 7, and 8?
Like,
or 5, 6, and 7.
I'm sure this has happened to Mike, but like I feel like, I mean, Mike, you're married. That when you met your wife, like I have butterflies. Like I love this content and these two shows so much that like it worries me a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like I have a feeling.
Have you heard of the Patriot by Steve Conrad?
No.
And then it stars his brother Chris Conrad.
So I got to watch it, I guess.
And then Perpetual Grace Limited is also amazing.
Is amazing. And Perpetual Grace, I had to end up buying it on iTunes because I just had no way to see it. And I think it's visually beautiful, like the cinematography and the colors and everything. And so I was like, I want to see it like beautifully on my TV. So I bought it because it's on a network called Epix, which I don't know what that is.
Isn't that where Outlander? My wife watches Outlander.
No, that's
Stars. Oh, she watches Outlander.
She didn't come to bed. Like she watched it for like 36 hours straight. Like I'm not. She slept for 2 hours a night.
Yes, thank you.
I watched one season of that for my sisters. And
just tell her we're all suffering in the Droughtlander. We feel her.
You know what's funny about that show to me too is I think that's exactly in that category of it's not for me. But like the value of it is still an A+++.
Here's the thing:
if that makes any sense.
The people who it is for, it is everything, and it's
that's what I mean. I would
not
hate
for
to take it away.
or it is all for you. There's no in between.
Like sometimes it's my problem. That show's my problem. That's
right. And Shy's problem too. I was texting with a friend the other day and she was like, oh, you know, something about Outlander. And I was like, oh, you watch Outlander? And she's like, yeah, how do you think I had my first kid? And I was like, no kidding.
You know what's funny is there's some version of that conversation is worked into every interaction I've heard my wife have with people about Outlander.
Yeah, no
You know what I
kidding. Why
mean?
do you
They're
think we like it?
but I mean, that's amazing. What I just love when a show has that kind of like effect. It's so
Like
great.
a physical, literally a physical effect.
Yeah.
But back to Patriot for a second. Like this, it's sort of like feel like it has been. And I've said this before on the pod, so Becky and Shay are probably tired of
Just
hearing
keep
it.
saying it. No, I'm never going to be tired of you complimenting these shows because people have to watch these shows.
But
Conrads
I feel
cannot
like
be a
it's
secret
been
forever.
so long since I've seen something that I can like sink my teeth into that
Right.
makes me think and laugh and feel and enjoy the shots and like enjoy the creation of it as well, because I feel like you can like a lot of stuff that's just not made well, but it's great and they didn't have a budget and they couldn't. I do not know what budget they gave. They could not have given the Steve Connor, the creator, a huge budget, but I feel like he doesn't need one. He is like able to make incredibly cool things. And he does all the music and he writes a lot of the songs in the shows. He created a band. And so for the show Perpetual Grace. So it's a very like a terror situation where he's involved in all aspects of it. And his brother is an actor in the show, in both shows. So Patriot has season 1 and season 2 on Amazon Prime, and it is weird. This is not mainstream
No,
stuff.
it sounds great. Yeah.
But it's a Coen Brothers, a little Tarantino, that kind of vibe.
I gotta see that. That's like I slept
weird.
on Fargo and I shouldn't have. Like that show's way better than
the
the
show?
Oh yeah, show's great.
Yeah.
The show's great. Mm-hmm.
So
Totally
yeah, that's
agree.
probably like something that'll be a good thing for me to go to next. But anyways, all that to say that if I want to like spread the love with this show, it is weird. It takes a bit to get into, but worth it. I think it's worth it. So Patriot, Perpetual Grace.
Since we are running out of time, I will run
down
down
I do have
the
to go
things.
soonish.
I'm going to run down the things that I'm watching. Becky and I and our spouses watched Bad Trip last night with Eric Andre, Tiffany Haddish, and Lil Rel Howery. I haven't laughed that hard in a movie all year.
Eric Andre's.
We were laughing so hard we were crying. And
you know what I like about Eric Andre is you can't deny it. Like it's like sometimes you're like, I don't know, is this guy funny? And then he's just working so hard. You're like, okay, he's hilarious.
What was great about it is that it's a movie that threads a regular plot in with a hidden camera movie. Like, so a lot of the scenes are real reactions.
Like Bad Grandpa or whatever?
Yeah, I guess it's from the same maybe, or it's associated with it. I don't know. But it's not mean. So Borat, which is genius, but Borat is like about exposing the worst in people.
Yeah, it's cynical.
And most of the hidden camera scenes really expose, I think, like good things in people. And it's
I think that's Eric Andre's fundamental thing. Like he always seems to be, you're in on it with him. Like he's doing crazy shit, but he doesn't totally exclude you.
Yeah, he's not
alienating people.
And I mean, the three of them, I mean, I was laughing so hard.
He's not humiliating the people who are caught on the hidden camera. Let's just say exactly. That. He's
Can I just say he tells my favorite joke of all time where he has his guest on the show and he brings out 3 people, like a middle-aged woman and the middle-aged man and like a kid. And he goes, pick one. He's like, what? And he's like, just pick one. Just pick one of these people right here. And the guest is like, all right, the middle one. Boom, shot with a gun and a squib goes off. Like amazing. Like on his show. I think I have never laughed so hard and not seen the joke coming as hard as that. Anyway, he'll be forever in my heart for that joke.
He commits to this movie. He was great. I think if this had been in the theater, it would be like one of these cult movies people are going back to see over and over again.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor on NBC, which has Ted Danson and Holly Hunter and Bella Lavelle, who is amazing and crazy ex-girlfriend. We've been watching it with the family. It's been a really fun show to watch with the kids. It's got like a Parks and Rec kind of public service humor vibe, but it's even less grown up. Like less mature, the humor. So we watched like 4 or 5 episodes straight, and I love that. We watched the 10 Commandments with the kid in honor of Passover.
Oh, that's funny.
I've been watching some animated Warner Brothers movies. I watched Judas and the Black Messiah as part of my effort to catch up.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that yet.
Fantastic acting, very cool movie. I still think One Night in Miami is the best movie that I saw so far.
Right.
So I've seen that. Chicago 7. It's kind of interesting. Judas and the Black Messiah and Chicago 7 take place around the same time, and even have some of the same characters in both movies played by. So I like Judas and the Black Messiah more than Chicago 7. But I would say I'm still bummed One Night in Miami is not nominated for Best Picture, because that was just mind blowing. I just bought the soundtrack of that. Then I also want to give a shout out to a book that's coming out. There's an actress, her name is Noah Tishby. She's an American and Israeli actress, but she's also like a historian, and she has written a book called Israel, A Simple Guide to the Most Misunderstood Country on Earth. And I have been hearing her speak about it a lot lately on Clubhouse. Mike, I don't know if you've gotten into the Clubhouse app yet.
No,
but
I should.
You might dig it. Yeah. So she's been speaking about it a lot lately. And what's great about Noah is that whether you agree with her or not, and I'm not saying this is a book that people need to agree with the point of view, but she's a very straight talker, and she is speaking in the voice of people from our generation, not from an old-timey historian's voice. And I have bought Lily a copy. I bought Becky a copy, and I think it's worth checking out. And it's on pre-order right now, but it's coming out next week in Amazon. And I've had the chance to ask her questions about the book already a number of times. So I said I would give a shout out to it on the podcast, and I really think people should check that out. With that, Mike, where can people follow you?
The Mike Roberts on Twitter and Instagram. Although lately I've been pretty. Can I quickly say I found out that the user base for Twitter is such a small number that it made me like the active daily users number. Do you know, like it's some obscenely low number, like in the hundreds of thousands, and then it makes me realize like how susceptible that is to suggestion by parties, and it made me really nervous about Twitter. Because it means like when there's that many people who have Twitter and that few active daily users, you realize getting things trending is so easy. And you obviously see how someone like Donald Trump
can just manipulate it
so easily. So I've been like really careful of Twitter lately. It just put a bad taste in my mouth about it. But
it's okay. Not many people follow us, so you can tweet with us whenever you want.
Okay.
It won't get picked up by the algorithm.
No, it's not even that. It really has made me like terrified of social media thinking about it. But yeah, so the Mike Roberts, so like after all that, all of it, I guess.
I think that's legit.
And Becky, where can people follow you?
At Paper BK Princess. And yeah, that's it.
And Lily, where can people follow you?
Chichi, Chichik Gomez on Twitter, and my name, Lily Corman, on Clubhouse.
And you can follow me at Pancake and the number 4 table. That's Pancake 4 table on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow all the Friday Night Movie shenanigans at FridayNightMoviePod.com or at Friday Night Movie. Check out our new Instagram TV series. Becky and I have a lot of content for you. We just taped another episode today. Our new Friday Night Movie presents Influenced. That's where Becky and I spend our own money. It's not an ad, where we've been influenced by someone we know, someone who is an influencer on Instagram, and we try something that they're really into, and we give you our thoughts. So
that's really funny.
So we put out 2 episodes. We've got another new one coming, and then we're going to be re-releasing some older bits that we did with new introductions on the Influenced brand. So this is a lot of fun. The advantage of living close to each other. You can so please check that out. We're having a ton of fun doing that, and I think you learn a lot about things that how things taste and how we might describe them. It's a lot of eating. If you're interested, as we mentioned every week, our family is supporting a number of charities, and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and the Equal Justice Initiative are 2 that are near and dear to our hearts. So please check out those organizations, as well as the Asian American Journalists Association. Those are all organizations that are doing really good things for our democracy, and it's an important time to be checking out things like that. So yeah, check those out, and if you can, and if you see fit, go ahead and support them. And last but not least, the theme song is by What Does It Eat, and it will kick in post-production, and that will be the end of the show. Thanks, guys. Bye.